Hey everybody, and welcome back to the third installment of my top 50 board games of all time for the 2021 into 2022 season. So we're at that halfway point now, and the games are just going from strength to strength. So we're going to start at 30 and go to number 21. So at number 30, I have Puerto Rico, which was last year's number 18. So a slight fall for this one, mainly because I haven't played it too much this year. But this, I still think, is one of the best games ever made, of course, being this high on the list. And this was actually widely regarded as one of the most influential and one of the most well-received Euro games ever made. And this one really did pioneer, or really make that action selection system take off, where you have a bunch of different actions you can select, and when you choose it, you get, as the selecting player, you get kind of an improved version of that action, where everybody else gets a follow-up action, which isn't so strong. And you have to really use that to your advantage and play them at the right times to benefit you, to make sure that you're not going to benefit anybody else as much as it's going to help you. And that can really create some interesting player interaction, where timing comes into play. You need to choose the right role at the right time, and sometimes even trust that other people will select a role, knowing that it's going to be quite good for you even if they do select it. So that creates a really interesting decision space, and the idea of this game is that you're trying to build this little colony up where you're going to get these plantations, then factories, to manufacture these goods, and then trying to ship them off for profits, all going back to that key mechanism of selecting the actions you're going to take each round. Works so well. Loads of different things you can do in this game in terms of getting upgrades that nobody else can have, or different strategies and courses you can take. And I think this game is genius. I think objectively it's a tremendous game that holds up amazingly well, considering this one goes back to 2002. I still think this game is fascinating. It's timeless, and an absolutely wonderful design that's still going to go kind of into the annals of time as one of the greats. So love this one. That's Puerto Rico at number 30. At number 29, I have Troyes, which was actually last year's number 17. This one has placed as high as 15 and as low as 17, so this is the lowest it's ever placed, but mainly because more games have pushed things down. I don't like this game any less than I did before. This is still one of the best dice drafting games out there, as at the start of your turn you're going to roll a bunch of dice, and then you're going to use those actions, sometimes by putting them in pairs or even trios, and activating certain cards on the board which you can invest in. Amazing variability in this game, and you're basically dividing these pit values on the dice you're selecting into these different actions, which can do lots of different things. Can give you low engine building benefits, or can let you contribute to building the church, or you can fight off these invading forces, which are going to communally hurt all the players if you don't deal with them, but you're going to get rewarded for contributing to fight them in terms of area control majorities. And this is such a cool game. It's very mechanical in the way it works. It's quite mathematical in times. It's all about division and what you're going to do. And normally I don't like games where you can really interfere with other people too much. But in this one, although it's a kind of a dice-driven Euro, the dice that you're rolling at the start of your turn aren't necessarily yours for the safekeeping, because you can actually choose to pay money to use the dice from other players. Now, normally I'd find that quite frustrating, because it makes you submit a bit of control in the game, but it actually works remarkably well in this game, and you do get compensated with money, which means you can alternatively buy dice of somebody else. But I love the variability in this one. So many different setups you can try. Every game feels different, and the whole game in its entirety just feels different. A wonderful game. That is Troyes at number 29. At number 28, I have Istanbul. This was last year's number 16 and has placed as low as 19. This one is a kind of a medium lightweight game. It's a kind of a route building style game, as you have this big grid of tiles, and you have a stack of tokens of your player colour, and you're going to move one or two spaces in an orthogonal direction and deposit one of your merchant discs on that spot and take the relative action. And that can be collecting resources, it can be going to the gamble house and trying to win money that way. And the idea is you're trying to collect all these different resources and then visit certain locations to trade them in order to acquire these rubies. And it's going to be a race to get to a certain amount of rubies. But I love the degree of planning you can have in this game, as you have to plan your routes accordingly. When you run out of stacks, you're going to have to backtrack on yourself and pick these merchants back up. And it's a really cool game about making these routes the most efficient paths on. Sometimes you're going to get in the way of your opponents, sometimes you're going to get in the way of them. And it's just a really cool, streamlined game with so many different paths to victory. The race element shines through tremendously. I would highly recommend picking up the expansions for this one, because it really does take it to the next level while still feeling true to the core game experience. And I love this game. I think it's a classic by Rudiger Dorn, and probably my favourite game of his. Yeah, so that is Istanbul at number 28. At number 27, I have last year's number 21, so a very slight fall for Marco Polo II, in service of the Khan. So this is the successor game of the Voyages of Marco Polo, which is considered one of the best dice placement games out there. This one has a lot of, well, it's 90% of the same game, but for me, this one did improve on some of the aspects of the base game, where in this game you're basically acquiring resources and fulfilling contracts. You're travelling around a map to visit different locations, collecting these different kind of sigils as set collection bonuses. And this is a really tight resource management game, as you've got to plan money accordingly, because you need money to travel, you need camels to travel. And I love how simple this game is, because it is a pretty simple contract fulfillment game, but I like the way that the different parts of this game synergize with each other, and the scarceness of getting to these particular spots. Because if you go somewhere as the first player, you're going to be, you're going to get there without any penalty. But if somebody goes there after you, they're going to have to start spending money to go there, which I really like. That again, a bit like Troyes, there's so much variability here, as all the different cities have different bonuses each time you play the game. So again, loads of variation there. And I suppose the thing that really makes these games stand out amongst anything else is the fact that each player is assigned a unique power at the start of the game, and those powers are really cool and can make you feel very powerful, but at the same time be envious of what the other players can do as well. So despite being so widely asymmetric in what you can do, it still manages to feel contained and balanced, which I absolutely adore. So a relatively simple game, a pretty straightforward style game, but this one just does what it does exceptionally well, and it goes, but it just holds up so well. It doesn't feel like it ever dates. It doesn't feel like it will start to depreciate over time. It just always feels strong. And since I've got the Voyages of Marco Polo, and since obviously number 2, then I can't really see these ever falling off my top 50, because they really are great, well-rounded games. At number 26, I have Glen 2 Chronicles. So this was actually last year's number 19. It's placed as high as 14 before. This one is, I think, probably my favourite, designated tile placement game, which you'd probably expect from a tile placement game, is you are building this little moor in this example, and you're placing tiles, and then when you place these tiles, you're triggering all the tiles around them to collect resources. Some resources are letting you trade resources in for points. And the way you acquire these tiles is really interesting, as you go around this rondelle system to acquire tiles, but the further you move forward just means that the people behind you are going to end up taking more turns to catch up with you, because you don't take another turn until you are at the back of that queue again. And I love that mechanism. This one also has some really cool twists in it in terms of scoring, because at the end of every kind of round in the game, you are going to score accordingly to your position with the other players. So even though you might be running away or winning in all the different fields of scoring criteria, if you're not winning massively by them, then you aren't going to score very much. So you really are rewarded to kind of go for a runaway victory on certain things. So it does make you kind of dip into everything, so you can't really neglect anything. And I do like the way that works. There's also some really cool investment things you can go to in a separate part of the board and get, again, unique abilities and things. And this is such a cool game. It feels very Euro style. It's kind of like Carcassonne on steroids, but it also has like another degree of gaminess to it, because you actually have people on your board which you're moving around, which can mean that you can only build in certain locations, but at certain points in the game you want to rush all those all your kind of workers back to the center tile so that you can score more points. A really tense game, and I absolutely adore it. And you're also incentivized to be as concise as you can, because if you go too big and too sprawling, then you can actually suffer negative points if the other people haven't done the same. So I love that. And on top of all that, you get so much additional modulation or modularity in terms of adding all these different modules in with these chronicles from this example of the game. So loads of things to try, and it's certainly one of the best tile placement games ever made. That is Glen 2 Chronicles at number 26. At number 25, I have last year's number 20 with the Castles of Burgundy. So this has placed as high as 20 and as low as 31. So it's actually a climb from last year. And for me, it really is an evergreen game by Stefan Feld. This is a point salad style game where no matter what you do, you get points in one way or another. And basically you are rolling a pair of dice, and then you're using those to acquire tiles from the main board or allocate them to your own personal board, getting bonuses along the way. Some things trigger other things. You've got this real kind of domino mechanism as you get this, which lets you get this, which lets you get this, which is really cool. You're also incentivized to race to fill up these certain locations, because when you do, you get more points, and doing that earlier gets you even more points. So it does have quite a nice amount of tenseness to this one. Also, you want to be very careful to keep mitigation tools in the form of these workers in your supply so that you aren't so subject to the roll of the dice. And I just love all these little touches which just make this relatively simple game just interesting, and again, it gives you that freedom, that autonomy to do what you want with the strategy in this one. And yeah, just so many options here. Different tiles come out every game. You can do different board layouts, and for me, this is just one of the classic modern Euros, and probably Feld's most popular game. In fact, definitely Feld's most popular game, and I think rightly so. So that is the Castles of Burgundy at number 25. At number 24, I have a new entry with Terra Mystica. So Terra Mystica was really one of those games that I don't know why I didn't get this one played until this year, because I only ever heard really good things about this one. I like the general concept of it, as you are these asymmetrical fantasy races, and then you are trying to establish these kind of kingdoms, I suppose, in terms of building all these different buildings. And when you're building these buildings, you are removing them from your individual player board and getting more upgrades and more income as you do so. So this was really one of the first games, or one of the pioneering games, where when you remove things from your player board, you get upgrades and get your engine going and get more income. And I really love that aspect of Euro games. It's probably one of my favourite things to explore. And that kind of meshed with the asymmetry just makes it so much more interesting, as all the different races want to all kind of specialize in different things. You want to be climbing these tracks, you want to be doing certain things at certain points in the game because it can be really beneficial to do so. Loads of replayability. It has a little bit of weird player interaction where sometimes you're incentivized to build close to other people to get bonuses. And this game just works in what it does. I think initially I was thinking, what am I trying to aim here? Because sometimes it can feel a little bit sandboxy, doesn't give you too much direction. But once I kind of that penny dropped, I thought, this is extremely clever. I love what you can do in this one, and it's just an amazing game. And I like the variability here in terms of the different races you can try, and it just means it gives you more incentive to get it back to the table. And at the moment, I don't see me tiring on this one. It's an absolutely phenomenal game. That is Terra Mystica at number 24. At number 23, I have another new game with Tinner's Trail. So Tinner's Trail is a re-implementation of a game of the same name by Martin Wallace from many years ago. This one's had a nice new layer of paint on it, nice new revamped graphic design and artwork, nice components. And the game itself, I think, is absolutely amazing as you are trying to auction for these mines. Sometimes you're doing that blindly, so you don't really know what you're buying for. Sometimes you do have the information because you can actually choose to look beforehand, or some of them even just start face up. And the idea is you're trying to buy these mines in order to extract the metals from those mines. So you've got your copper and your tin. And there's basically this fluctuating market where certain points in the game you can choose to sell these metals for money. And when you sell them for money, you are going to have the option to trade that money for points. So you're pretty much buying points in this game, and the earlier you do that in the rounds, the better return you're going to get. So I love games that use that time system and that tension of the actual pacing of the game for its own benefit. Additionally, there are some really cool things you have to overcome in this game and invest in order to extract water from your mines, because if you have too much water in your mines, it can become pretty expensive to get that metal out, which means it can be a bit of a dud in terms of an investment. So you do need that hardware to get that water out, maybe in the form of pumps or these tunnels, and it all just comes together so wonderfully. A great interactive game, and probably one of my favourite scoring mechanisms out there in terms of converting money for points. And the earlier you're doing things, the better return you're going to get. So, do you want to take a gamble and wait until things are more expensive and sell your metal for more profit that way, or do you want to do it now while the market's pretty decent, but maybe potentially it's going to crash in the next future round or two? So it does have a bit of speculation, but it is all good. So I absolutely adore this game. Really scales well in terms of accommodating the different player counts, and I think it's phenomenal. That is Tinner's Trail at number 23. At number 22, I have Coimbra. This was actually last year's number 10, and it's placed as high as number 5. So this has actually never been outside the top 10 until this point. But as I keep saying, this is not because I like this game any less. I think this game is a phenomenal dice drafting game, and I actually played this one semi-recently and adored it. So definitely reminded about how good this game is. This is actually a relatively simple game in terms of its flow and what you're actually doing, but the decisions or the meaning behind your decisions are pretty crunchy. Because not only are you drafting these dice in favour of the pip value on them, because the higher pip value, so if you're going for your 5s and 6s, are going to get you priority in terms of initiative to draft these cards. But the colours are good because the colours relate to tracks on the board where if you invest in, you can get benefits such as getting more money, getting more military points, getting straight up points, or even let you travel around this map to collect other bonuses. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you might think, why don't I always take the high pip values? Because you have to pay for those pip values, and that can be quite tough to manage your cash flow and to keep all your currencies up and topped up, so that you always have the option to get the best cards into your fold. And these cards do lots of cool things, not only letting you climb the tracks, but also investing in your player board engine, which might mean if you draft this colour of dice, go up this track, or at a certain point in the game, choose which track to go up. Or maybe when you buy a card of this type, you get a discount. So it's all really cool, subtle engine building, but it just works so harmoniously. A real smooth, elegant system, really bright, vibrant components and appeal. And whenever I'm asked to maybe advocate a game that will introduce people into the Euro style side of things, and maybe they have a more tainted view of Euro games, thinking that they're all bland and have those sepia tone boards and that boring beige look, then I say, you know what, give Coimbra a look, and this will certainly change your opinion on the Euro genre. So I think this is a great game to advocate the Euro space, and not only because it's beautiful aesthetic, but because the gameplay is amongst the best. Love this one. It is a tremendous game. That is Coimbra at number 22. And the final game for this instalment of my top 50, at number 21, I have Underwater Cities by Vladimir Suki. This one is a game about trying to build this underwater city, and you're building these domes, you're building tunnels to connect these good domes, you're building these other little buildings connected to them as well. But this game is pretty much the epitome of an engine building game. Anything you want to do to constantly getting smaller and smaller improvements and making things more efficient and more give bigger dividends the more you invest in certain strategies. This one is probably the almost like the poster child of that genre of games, where you have so many different cards, and these cards might say, when you do this, you get this, and then you get this, then you get this, or make things get cheaper, or even letting you tap cards to get other benefits as well. Every kind of element of engine building is used in Underwater Cities, which I absolutely love. So it really is a smorgasbord of options, different things to try with every game, and it all ties back to this really cool worker placement mechanism, where not only are you selecting the action you take on the board, you have to pair those, or if you do have the option to pair those with a matching coloured card, then you get that bonus as well. And it kind of has this thing where the powerful cards match with the less powerful worker placement spots, and of course vice versa. And it just create this really cool balance of what you're going to do with your turns. Is this the right time to use this card? Do I want to go to this worker placement space and potentially not get a bonus card action? And managing your hand is so important. Has a really good solo mode as well if you want to just try all the different options you can do. And as I said, if you love your engine building games, this one is one you cannot avoid because you will be doing yourself into service. It has every type of engine building you could imagine. And the way these cards synergize and mesh with each other is just mind-blowing. So adore this game, absolutely tremendous, and really high for a debutante game. That is Underwater Cities at number 21. So I hope you've enjoyed this installment of my top 50 board games of all time. I love talking about all these games because they really are the best of the best, and we still have 20 more to go. So excited to talk about those too. But if you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.